Trump plans a massive immigration raid in Chicago next week, report. President-elect Donald Trump plans a massive immigration raid in Chicago, with up to 200 officers involved, according to a report. For people familiar with the plans told the Wall Street Journal that the raid is expected Tuesday morning, a day after he's inaugurated. The agents will reportedly target undocumented immigrants with criminal backgrounds, with offenses such as traffic violations. However, the raid will round up people in the country illegally even without criminal backgrounds. Additionally, Trump's team plans to work with right-wing media outlets to boost publicity of the raid. We're going to start right here in Chicago, Illinois. Trump's incoming border czar, Tom Homan, said at a holiday party in Chicago, the Journal reported. And if the Chicago mayor doesn't want to help, he can step aside. But if he impedes us, if he knowingly harbors or conceals an illegal alien, I will prosecute him. Trump has vowed to begin mass deportations on day one of his second term. He and his allies have also threatened officials in so-called sanctuary cities who refuse to help law enforcement agents. Trump said he will implement the largest deportation effort in American history on his first day in office, targeting an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. He has also suggested using the U.S. military and invoking the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to carry out deportations. In other news, Biden is leaving it to the Trump administration to enforce the TikTok ban. President Joe Biden's administration is not planning to implement the TikTok ban set to take effect on Sunday. That would leave it to President-elect Donald Trump and his officials to act after they take office on January 20th. The law, which was passed by Congress and signed by Biden in April of last year, requires TikTok to be banned unless ByteDance, its China-based parent company, sells the app's U.S. operations by January 19th. Given the sheer fact of timing, this administration recognizes that actions to implement the law simply must fall to the next administration, which takes office on Monday, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said in a statement. President Biden's position on TikTok has been clear for months, including since Congress sent a bill in overwhelming, bipartisan fashion to the president's desk. TikTok should remain available to Americans, but simply under American ownership or other ownership that addresses the national security concerns identified by Congress in developing this law, she added. The bill that would ban TikTok from U.S. app stores also gave Biden the ability to grant ByteDance a 90-day extension if several conditions were met, including if there was evidence of significant progress made towards selling TikTok's U.S. operations. Trump has defended the app, which was banned amid concerns user data could be accessed by the Chinese government. Mike Waltz, Trump's incoming national security advisor, told Fox News on Wednesday that Trump would seek to preserve the app, used by around 170 million Americans. We're going to find a way to preserve it but protect people's data. And that's the deal that will be in front of us, Waltz said. He suggested an executive order could be used to protect it, but offered few details on how this might work in practice. Last month, Trump called on the U.S. Supreme Court to pause the ban. The Supreme Court unanimously upheld the ban on Friday. Following the ruling, TikTok CEO Shou Zi Chew posted a video to TikTok thanking Trump for his commitment to working with TikTok to keep the app running in the U.S. There have been several potential TikTok buyers, but it's unclear if or to what extent ByteDance has sought to divest. ByteDance and TikTok have not publicly shown any interest in a sale. Democratic former Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said on the Senate floor Thursday that more time was needed to find a U.S. buyer. It's clear that more time is needed to find an American buyer and not disrupt the lives and livelihoods of millions of Americans, of so many influencers who have built up a good network of followers, Schumer said. It's also unclear what will happen to the app on Sunday if Biden, Trump, or the Supreme Court do not step in before then to save it. The legislation passed last year requires platforms in the U.S. such as Apple or Google to stop offering the app or updating it when the sale deadline passes, meaning it'd effectively go dark In other
or
news,
be unavailable.
Curious, Navy sailor tried to access Biden's medical records as colleagues freaked out, investigation shows. Driven by curiosity, A U.S. Navy corpsman attempted to access President Biden's medical records last year following a group discussion with his colleagues about military security protocols for using government computers, according to the federal criminal investigation obtained by CBS News. In July, CBS News reported a junior U.S. Navy sailor attempted to gain access to Mr. Biden's medical records but was unable to do so and was subsequently administratively reprimanded for the unauthorized query. CBS News filed a Freedom of Information Act request with the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, the civilian law enforcement agency responsible for criminal investigations within the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps. On Friday, NCIS released its closed investigation to CBS News. The investigation details how a low-ranking U.S. Navy corpsman attempted to access the president's medical records and the penalty he received for doing so, a non-judicial punishment for dereliction of duty under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the laws and regulations governing the U.S. military. The corpsman, whose name the Navy will not disclose, was demoted in rank to E2 from E3, given 20 days of extra duty and only received half pay for the next 6 months. Base pay for an E2 with 2 to 3 years of service is roughly $2,260 per month. On the afternoon of February 22nd, according to the NCIS documents, the Navy corpsman sat at his desk, surrounded by the steady hum of computers and the murmurs of his co-workers at the Naval Medical Readiness and Training Center at Fort Belvoir in Virginia. A civilian described as a licensed nurse and a U.S. Army soldier worked nearby. The scene was standard bureaucratic fare until a nearby colleague left her workstation, leaving her Common Access Card, or CAC, behind, which was still logged into her account. This small, unassuming piece of plastic, roughly the size of a credit card, is described by the Defense Department as a smart key, granting access to everything from locked doors to military computer networks. The group of medical professionals struck up a conversation and started talking about the security risk of leaving a CAC unattended in a computer. One of the unnamed individuals pointed out the glaring vulnerability. Someone could maliciously use your CAC when you walk away, they said, according to the narrative of the group discussion within the NCIS investigation. Another voice in the group floated the idea that someone could use an unattended CAC account to snoop on the president's medical records. The notion hung in the air. The Navy corpsman responded with apparent disbelief. Could he actually pull up the medical records for the President of the United States? He decided to test it, according to the NCIS investigation. The Navy corpsman told NCIS investigators he was driven by curiosity, so he pulled up the patient search database in the Genesis Medical Health System, the database for the military medical system, and typed in the name Joseph Biden. A single record with the name Joseph Biden appeared, with a birth date attached. The NCIS investigation stated that when the file popped up, the Navy corpsman and his co-workers were freaked out, with one of his colleagues walking away from the computer. The Navy corpsman then turned to Google to look up Mr. Biden's birth date and saw that it matched the birth date on the medical file. He clicked into the record to see what information was inside. The corpsman would later tell NCIS investigators that there was not a lot of information in the record, except 2 instances, and he did not remember the specifics of the instances, but remembered a doctor's name was listed. The corpsman turned to Google again and searched for the name of Mr. Biden's doctor, which did not match the name listed on the Genesis record, according to the investigation. The corpsman told NCIS agents that he realized at this point he should stop looking at the record and closed out the file. A forensic analysis showed that the Joseph Biden file was accessed for about 20 seconds between 1:22 p.m. and 1:23 p.m. A female colleague, who was aware the corpsman searched the system for the president, advised him to report himself to his supervisor. The corpsman stated he knew he was going to be reported for violating the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA, the federal law designed to protect patients' health information. He didn't immediately report himself, but told investigators he felt guilty, so he reported himself the next morning. By then, however, another colleague had already reported the violation up the chain of command. The corpsman waived his rights and confessed to accessing the record out of curiosity. The corpsman said he did not print, save, email, download, photograph, or otherwise document the record. Another colleague told investigators they had never heard the corpsman express anything about his political beliefs or background, and that he was nonchalant until the file popped up, describing him as freaked out. The Naval Criminal Investigative Service launched its investigation on February 26th. On February 27th, the deputy director of the White House Medical Unit, identified as a U.S. Army officer in the NCIS report, told investigators that the record accessed by the corpsman was not a legitimate electronic health record of the president. The president was informed about the sailor's attempts to access his medical records within hours of White House staff being notified about the attempted breach by the Defense Department, a White House official told CBS News in July. The president underwent his annual physical at Walter Reed on February 28, 2 days after the Navy's criminal investigation began. The president was deemed fit for duty by his doctor after the physical that lasted about 2.5 hours. NCIS agents also looked through the corpsman's social media accounts. Agents found that his profile picture on Instagram, when run through a reverse image search, revealed imagery potentially associated with the online hacktivist group Anonymous. It's not clear from the investigation if any actual link was confirmed by NCIS agents between the corpsman and Anonymous. The corpsman's MSI laptop and Apple iPhone were seized by NCIS investigators, with the corpsman cooperating fully. The laptop's internet browser history showed that the sailor conducted searches for Biden, Dr. Flights, Anonymous, President, POTUS. A text message shows the corpsman telling an unnamed person that he looked up Joe Biden. The laptop and phone were later returned. None of the others present during the incident are reported to have been disciplined.